You finally land that sharp, ambitious 23-year-old SDR, and 3 months later, they're gone. Not because they couldn't sell, not because they didn't want to work, but because you didn't lead them the way they needed. Gen Z isn't broken. They're redefining what great leadership looks like. According to Deloitte, 49% of Gen Z would quit if their leaders didn't align with their values. That's not entitlement, that's standards. And in this week's episode of Revenue Rascals, we're breaking down how to hire, train, and actually keep Gen Z sales talent. We'll talk about why sink or swim sales culture is dead, what leadership looks like to the most ambitious generation yet, and how to build loyalty that rivals any before it. Because the future of your sales team isn't about toughness, it's about trust, clarity, and coaching that counts. So if you're tired of the revolving door and ready to become the kind of leader Gen Z fights to work for, you're in the right place. This is Revenue Rascals, where we don't blame the next generation, we build with them. According to Deloitte, 49% of Gen Z workers say they'd quit a job if their leaders weren't aligned with their values. And so that's why today we're going to talk about hiring, training, and retaining Gen Z talent. Imagine this. You've just hired a 23-year-old SDR. They're sharp, ambitious, but within 3 months, gone. Why? Not because they couldn't sell, not because they were lazy, but because you didn't lead them the way they needed. Gen Z isn't broken. They're simply refusing to sign up for burnout culture. And if you adapt just a little, you'll win more loyalty from this generation than you've ever imagined. It's time for Rascal Wrap-Up, unfiltered truth, straight talk, no fluff. Gen Z gets an unfair rap. Entitled, flaky, not tough enough. But the truth is, they're loyal to leaders, not companies. And this will be the key to unlocking your ability as a leader to hire, train, and retain Gen Z. And I think we all know that you have to figure out how to play nice in the sandbox with Gen Z because, well, they're the next generation of our labor force, and we're gonna need them. The reason why this topic is just at my heart right now is because I do well, really well, hiring, training, and retaining Gen Zs. They're loyal to me. You can go and check out my LinkedIn recommendations. You'll see a bunch of Gen Zers who love to work with me and for me. And something that I realized in this journey is that a lot of leaders right now who are millennials or older are struggling to figure out a way to keep these Gen Zers engaged and producing and hitting their numbers and also getting them to work for you for longer than 6 months. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this today. And this is why it's so close to my heart. This is the thing. Gen Zers, they demand clarity. What does success look like? What does good performance mean in this role? Now, I think anybody who's been successful in their career has gone into jobs or their business and wanted this. They want to be successful. They don't take the job to not be successful. However, the communication, the leadership, the motivation style that Gen Zs need, it's definitely next level. So the more specific you can be, the better. So for example, if you're hiring this SDR, what are the KPIs for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? You're clearly not going to hire them on day 1 and expect them to perform the same way on day 90. So how do you set that up for them? So 30, 60, 90 days, they can feel successful. Give them a little bit of scale, a ramp, and they're going to gain confidence selling for you when they have this ramp. So the next thing is they thrive on consistent coaching and feedback, not annual reviews. Like they won't even be there for their annual review if you wait too long. And so this is a bit of an adjustment for us, right? So how are you using your time, either one-to-ones or group meetings, or if you are in an office, how are you in passing, encouraging them, listening on their calls, providing instant feedback? Like this is what they want. But what I want everyone to understand is they want the feedback now so they can get better. Personal development, skill development, growth is so incredibly critical to them. And how joyful is that for us, for the older leaders? We want people who want that, but they need a different style of coaching. The feedback needs to be there. So I would consider myself a people-centric leader. And the reason why this type of leadership style, in my humble opinion, is going to be the one that continues to get results, even with Gen Zs, because of what they value and how I lead. So what does this look like? A people-centric leader, first of all, it's really important. We still get results. So at the end of the day, leadership style equals results. Hit your number. This is how I get results. And this is how people-centric leaders get results and why it works so darn well with Gen Zers. So first of all, builds trust. That is number one. Everything with Gen Z is based on trust. 2, makes time to listen. You're accessible. You want to hear it. 3, you're confident but humble. Next, you believe in their potential. Oh, this one makes me so excited to be a leader. I'm also a mom. As I'm recording this podcast, I have a 9-year-old and, oh my gosh, 9 and 13. So I have one Gen Zer right on the cusp and one Alpha, I believe. And the believing in their potential is so incredibly mission critical for these Gen Zers. They have grown up on devices. They have seen people be super successful. They've seen people that appear to be successful that haven't worked that hard when actually that's only part of the story that you see on social. So believing in their potential and reminding them they have it is so incredibly mission critical. Can remember an SDR that I was supporting in a past project, and he had a rough day. He had a really rough day. And he told me about it. I made time to listen. I was confident with my coaching, but humble. And I said to him, listen, congratulations. You've just entered his name 2.0 version. And guess what? You're going to have a 3.0 version and a 4.0 version and a 5.0 version. Let's sit down and look and figure out what those versions look like for you. Not just of the output of the SDR role, but what do you want to learn? Who do you want to be? What conversations do you want to navigate? What life and business skills? And when you can hold space and coach on that, that's when you get the results. And that is when they stick around for a long time. And then when you believe in their potential, what do you have to do next? You have to support their growth. How are you advocating for them? How are you allowing them to develop those skills that are so important? I love giving out a promotion that is earned. Love it. It is one of my favorite things in the world because you set goals, you worked on your development, and now you're here and you get to deserve it, right? So how are you supporting people in their growth? And it doesn't mean a promotion every single time. It can be a certain skill set or a new metric they want to hit. It could be all kinds of things, but you have to support them in the growth and give them a plan to get there and remind them that they're going to develop their versions of 1.0, 2.0. 3.0. I mean, by now I'm on Michelle 52.0, right? It just takes some time. The next thing here, which is so critical and warms my heart, is to give credit where credit is due. I rarely, as a leader, take credit for something because if my team did the work, I'm going to give them the credit. And at the end of the day, whatever production the team has reflects on me. And it's not my first rodeo. I've gotten lots of recognition. I get results. I do all these things. And don't get me wrong, I love a pat on the back. What person doesn't from the CEO? But from a day-to-day standpoint, give credit to your team because they'll want to work harder for you when they see, wow, I did that thing and it really mattered and we were able to do things. The next thing is defends their team. This is a huge part of managing up whatever leadership role you have right now. So if you're a sales manager, you're managing up to your VP of sales. If you're VP of sales, you're probably managing up to the CEO or the CRO. You just manage up the narrative. And it's a really, really important piece of the puzzle because you're with your team all the time. You know what they're doing, but that doesn't always cross over. So defend your team and make sure you're managing up and managing the narrative. And next is makes work enjoyable. Yeah, this might be my favorite part. We spend so much of our time working. We need to enjoy it and love it. And when you can be the type of person that makes work enjoyable, they're going to want to work for you for a long time. And it also feels more in alignment, especially with the Gen Zers, because this, I hate saying it, work-life balance, that doesn't really exist. I think we all know that. But the alignment between your work and your life does exist. And if you can make it joyful for people to go to work, they will absolutely want to work with you for a very, very long time. All right. So the next thing about them is they want to work hard and enjoy life, but they are absolutely signing up for effectiveness over exhaustion. This will be the generation that says peace out to, especially in the US, burnout culture. And, this is the one that I think that really just kind of like burns down in the stomach for a lot of CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs, leaders, because the burnout culture has always been so rewarded. It's always been so rewarded. But the thing is every piece of data ever produced shows you have 4 to 5 hours of highly effective time per day. It does not matter if you take breaks, if you go on a walk, you come back, you have 4 to 5 hours. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be working 4-hour work days, but your max productivity time is between that 4 to 5 hour window. So how can you reduce distractions for people? How can you help them get in the zone faster every single morning instead of hanging out around the coffee maker or the water cooler or having all of these other things distract them? Like in those 4 to 5 hours, it is absolutely mission critical. They are doing the most important work and moving the needle. All right, so I'm going to cite the University of Illinois and their attention restoration study in 2011, and that found that the human brain can maintain high-level focus for only 4 to 5 hours per day before decision fatigue and attention depletion set in. This is so mission critical for how we treat our Gen Zers and how important this is. We have to teach them how to be effective and not burn out. How do you use your 4 to 5 hours per day to do most of what you want? So on the tail end, and when you're working those last couple of hours per day, they don't take a lot of your brain power, administrative tasks, perhaps time with colleagues, collaboration, culture building, that kind of thing. But we have to teach them how to be able to do this. And one thing to remember here is just like millennials once clashed with, boomers and Gen Xers, they changed the work culture forever. Forever, millennials. I'm a millennial, apparently an elder millennial, so that's special. And other than 18 months of my entire professional career, I have never worked in an office. Either outside sales, home office, traveling salesman, business owner, very, very small amount of time. And to me, this is my reality. This is how I'm the most productive and the most joyful and integrated and aligned in my life. And, my generation made that possible. Technology made that possible. So I think what we have to remember is just because there's differences in generations does not mean we have to be like less successful, stay small to build businesses that can accommodate these Gen Zers, like not at all. But we get to rise to the occasion to adjusting our leadership style to support these Gen Zers. And if that wasn't enough for you, a Gallup poll recently reported only 29% of Gen Z feel engaged at work. Engagement spikes with frequent coaching and feedback. Whoa, that's amazing. And I realize not every single person in leadership loves coaching, but for those of you who do, this is your time to shine. I absolutely love coaching and training my team. I don't think there's any greater joy than watching someone progress in their career, but also their personal development. I can think of this one young woman that I recently helped really get to her next level within the organization. But it's not just next level achievement-wise, but she learned how to have conversations with the CEO. Woo. She learned that, okay? Which is amazing. She learned how to manage her emotions and to communicate in a professional way to achieve the same goal. She learned how to creatively negotiate with partners to grow her own pipeline. She learned a lot of things. And, I remember when I was telling her, I was moving on to my next project, like just the emotion she had, and I'll never forget this. She just made me feel so loved and appreciated. And she was so grateful for what I was able to do. And that's how Gen Zers stay loyal. They stay loyal that way. And, it does present a bit of a problem in some cases where they're loyal to leaders, not the company. Because if a leader leaves, what happens? That is an absolute real problem, and it's something that we have to combat. We have to find a way for leadership to be cohesive in leadership styles so that they can connect with the Gen Zers. So if there is a transition or a change, you don't lose your Gen Zers. So that is absolutely something we have to solve for. And this goes back to what I was talking about before, is in Pew Research, Gen Z ranks work-life balance as their number one career priority. Whew. Number one career priority. Now, if you've been working for long enough, like I have, you know that work-life balance is a bit of a crock. It doesn't really happen. What I like to say is there's seasons for work or life, right? So you might go into a sprint in work where it's like, hey, family, friends, to yourself, these 3 months I'm grinding. I need to hit this milestone. I'm going all in on this project, whatever it can be. A great example in my life right now is this podcast. I have been planning this podcast for months. I interviewed all of the production teams. I wanted to come out of the gates like $1 million podcast, and I want to change millions of people's lives, right? So I've had to ask my family and my friends, be supportive. I'm not as accessible as I usually am. That's it. And I still have my consulting clients. So this is, it's a really, really big thing. But then when I'm done with this little sprint I'm doing, you can bet, by the time that happens, it's probably be around Christmas time. And I'm going to be making cookies. I'm going to be decorating holiday parties, reconnecting with my family and friends, and being a totally different, softer person than I am in these first couple of months trying to get this podcast out the door. So I think this is a really critical part, is that we explain to Gen Zers that work-life balance is a crock. And instead, you need to be in alignment and you need to plan for it. And if you can recondition them to understand that autonomy is actually more valuable than this work-life balance or whatever other value you want to bring in, right? So autonomy, for example, I think is a great one that a lot of Gen Zers value. They want to know that they're trusted, they can be independent, they can still perform. And that's about it, right? And that is autonomy, right? So it means do we really need to micromanage these people? No, you need to set clear goals, 30, 60, 90. You need to be there to coach them, but give them the space to do the job they know that they're wanting to learn how to do, that they're growing in. They have to make mistakes. Do not micromanage them. Do not be what I call a helicopter parent. Don't do it. They don't like it. The autonomy angle will give them the perceived value of the work-life balance without having to go work-life balance, which we all know doesn't work. So the lesson here, friends, stop fighting the shift, start leading it. Welcome to Why This Works and Why It Doesn't. Real strategies, real results, no sugarcoating. All right, so here's our tactic to analyze. Old school sink or swim sales onboarding. Absolutely does not work with Gen Zers. They're completely overwhelmed without structure and immediately disengage. I'm going to say that again. Overwhelmed without structure and immediately disengage. This is so critical. One of my big first sales jobs I had, there was zero training. Zero. Okay, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'm quite animated. Hope you're enjoying it. There was zero training. So much so that, I just used my cubicle buddy. I listened in on his conversations, copied that. If I had a question, I had a manager to go to, but there was no formal onboarding. And it made it harder for me to do well fast. But because of my generation, because of my specific skill sets, because of the way life was then, I was like, well, I still got to succeed. I need to crush. So I absolutely crushed And I ended up creating the sales training for the department, so no one else had to go through it. But this generation would leave before that was even done. So it is absolutely critical you provide that structure so that they're engaged from day one. So be prepared for these hires. You absolutely have to, like if we're speaking the sales department right now, because those are the examples that I'm using right now, but this applies to anything, you should have a new hire training LMS or something similar to that, where it's like, hey, welcome to X company. Here we go. There needs to be that welcome training, not just on the company, but on the skills that they need to have and how they continually improve. And to continue with that is the figure it out culture erodes trust with this generation. And what's not going to fly? It's not going to fly. Now, I'm not saying they need to be handheld, micromanaged. Like I just talked about that a few minutes ago, right? But they want to know, like, how am I successful? Give me the tools and I want to succeed, which is a beautiful thing. But the figure it out culture, that wasted time and energy when you have to just go figure it out, it's not what they want anymore. And us as leaders, because listen, remember, this is our workforce future. We don't have another option here. Like, I realize AI is going to help us a lot, but we're still going to have to employ Gen Zers. So I need you to figure out how you can prepare people and set them up for success from day one. I guess this is where I love the Gen Z culture, because I've always felt this way, is that burnout as a badge of honor is the worst badge of honor I could ever receive. Ever. I have burnt out several times in my life. And one of the reasons I wanted this podcast to get out there, the reason why I created High Performance Sales Habits, the workbook that's available on Amazon if you're really craving it right now. The reason why I did that is because I don't want the next generation or even people just a few seasons of life behind me to feel like the only option is burnout to get success. And I've worked super hard my whole life. There is a difference between working hard and being burnt out or allowing yourself to get burnt out. And what I love about this generation, zero tolerance as a whole. They're going to quit before they play that game. So if we want to continue to grow businesses, to be successful, to scale, to make millions, guess what we got to do? We got to figure out how to get them to work hard, get results, love their job, and not quit on us when we're pressing and rewarding burnout culture. This show is all about revenue architecture. You can absolutely build a business that does not require burnout culture to be successful, but you have to do that from the very beginning. So last summer, I wanted to get paddle boards. So I did all of this research. We live by lots of lakes, super fun. And so I decided I wanted to purchase Tower paddle boards. So we purchased 2 of them. We actually got them as gifts. Thanks, Grandma, aunts, for the kids for their birthdays. And inside, when I unwrapped everything, I saw that they had some books in there. And I love books. I love reading, all the things. And also, I'll say right now, anybody listening right now that knows the founder of Tower Paddleboards and the author of 5-Hour Workdays, his name is Stefan Artistol. Hopefully I said that right. I want him on this podcast because I absolutely love this. The reason why it's so important is he created this 5-hour workday for his employees. Now, the deal is he had to build his business model to support that. So this is a really, really key part of this conversation. And if you already have a business that doesn't support it, well, how can you pivot? How can you use technology? How can you change the processes, the operations, your pricing, whatever it is? How can you provide something closer to that 5-hour workday and still be hugely successful? Because what will happen, and you'll see this at Tower Paddleboards, I'm willing to bet, if I remember correctly from the book, it was like 0 attrition, no turnover. People were getting better results than they did when they were working 8-9-hour days. And this is a significant switch. So I love what he has said because I have believed this from day one of when I have started my career. Now, did I always work 5-hour work days? Of course not. Like, my goodness, if I could count how many 12-hour days I had, I don't even know. But what I'm saying is I'm inspired by him because his company became more successful. People were happier, retention was higher, and they produce a great product. Like, I absolutely love my tower paddleboard. So these are the types of things we need to take into consideration as we're building businesses with Gen Zs that are going to be the vast majority of the workforce before we know it. This is Rascal Fixes, practical moves to turn your mess into momentum. All right, so what do? 1, clear success blueprint for every role you hire. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter if they're Gen Z or anything else. Who doesn't want a blueprint for success? So spell it out for the 30, 60, 90 days. Do not expect someone's going to be as good at 30 days as they are 90. Make it realistic, but like a little bit of a stretch too. But those first 90 days is when they gain buy-in on the company and your leadership. Like, those first 90 days are so incredibly critical. So just give them the blueprint. Say, this is what you need to do. Here's your metrics. This is how I'm going to support you. This is what you do when you need additional support. Like, let's rock and roll. Next thing is layered training. Breaking training into bite-sized, repeatable modules. And when I say modules, I'm coming to you from an educator standpoint. I've been teaching adults for 7+ years at this point, creating online courses, modules, worksheets, all these things. Hundreds and hundreds of people, like, I have coached, and then thousands in my courses. This is the thing. Too much information at once is not good. It needs to be bite-sized. And it's a huge reason, like, why I'm including free resources at the end of all of my solo episodes on this podcast, because I realize some of you are audio learners, so you're on podcasts with me, right? Whoop, whoop. That's me. Some of you want to see my face, which is why I'm on YouTube. Plus, the SEO is amazing, so more people can find us, right? And then lastly is you need to touch and feel. You need a PDF. You need a printout. So that's why I'm on Substack, so that I can send that out and you can actually put the lessons of this podcast into play. Really, really important. So I want you to think this way and to produce this bite-sized, repeatable content. And also another thing to remember, to make it hard, like, to make it so hard where it's like you got to log into 85 places. The interface is weird. Like, my best learning moments, I plug into podcasts when I go to the gym at 5:30 in the morning. Oh my gosh, my brain is ripe. It's fresh. It's absorbing. Like, give the ability, if we go back to that work-life balance or autonomy, like, they don't need to be sitting in their desk, learning and listening to training modules. Like, take a lap, take a walk, plug in. Like, let's have quizzes at the end. Let's see if you retained it. Listen to it on your way to and from work. If you don't have a commute, when you take your 10-minute breaks, like I do, to walk on my indoor tread or around the cul-de-sac, you plug in, you learn. It has to work inside their day-to-day life, and it needs to be there. It's absolutely critical. This is the thing I also understand, like I've said before, it's really hard for internal leaders to have the time unless you have a dedicated training department to produce this. So listen, there's 2 options you have here. You either three. You make the time yourself and you do it, or delegate it. Whoop, whoop, we love a good delegation. You really can delegate a lot of the training creation to somebody on your team. 2 is you hire a consultant or a training company like myself to come in and to create it so that it's that asset there forever. Or 3, you give a budget to your team members so they can go out and continue to learn and develop on their own using those funds. And I will say the funds option and the bringing training in from outside, it is a huge increase in perceived value for that role for that Gen Zer. It's a huge thing because they care so much about personal and professional growth. Next thing is coaching cadence. All right. I light up around coaching. I love it. Makes me feel full and excited, right? So with the coaching cadence, what I have found is weekly one-to-ones with anyone who's been in the company 6 months or less, or is particularly struggling or transitioning to a new role, is absolutely mandatory. However, people, with weekly one-to-ones, leader sets the agenda, direct report comes prepared to talk. If you keep doing everything for your Gen Zers or anybody who reports to you, nothing will ever be accomplished. You set the agenda and expectations, they come prepared with the information. Absolutely love it. The next thing is daily huddles. They need that, especially in the beginning, but I would argue for all of time, especially in sales roles. Where's the huddle? It doesn't need to be that big. And he's like, what's happening today? What went well yesterday? What can go better tomorrow? I mean, there's a lot more to this. I'm going to need to do actually an entire episode on meeting, on meeting cadence and structure and productivity and execution. So we will save that. That is really, really, really critical. The other thing is ongoing micro feedback. So we all have chat channels now. And if you work in person, then you see them in the office. If you see something that you want to encourage more of, give them feedback in public, recognize them. If it's something private, I always say celebrate in public and correct in private. So then you correct in private, one-to-one. Hey, listen to this call. This is where I think you should improve. Please practice this. They are going to love it. Your tone matters though. So you have to believe in them. Remember, believe in their potential. All right. So motivation. This is another great way. This is the thing. I think everybody who's successful would understand that you aren't successful because you're motivated. You're successful because you're disciplined. Discipline. I will tell you right now, when my alarm goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning, I am not motivated to jump out of bed and go to the gym. I am disciplined. I am dedicated to keeping my body in peak shape. It helps my brain. It helps me be a better person. I feel good. This podcast is better because of it. My whole day is ruined if I don't do that. But I am not necessarily motivated every day to get up at the butt crack of dawn. So it's discipline. Discipline is so incredibly critical. So we kind of have to trick the Gen Zers though, because they're all into motivation, keep me pumped up, do all the things. Sorry, Gen Zer, if you're listening to this, but that's not really that sustainable. So what I want to teach is making motivation into discipline, self-discipline, self-leadership. And that's really important. But in order to get there, you do have to start from a motivational foundation, which means recognition, gamified progress, and not just comp plans. They want to make a bunch of money, but that's not all that drives them. And it certainly doesn't drive them to stay committed to your company and their role. So recognition can look like a lot of things. And if you're watching me on YouTube, you'll see all of the trophies in the background. Salespeople love trophies. But you know what happens a lot of times is other departments like ops, marketing, right? Even customer success, are they getting trophies or is it just the salespeople? How many lessons can we learn from the way that sales leaders have motivated their team to literally produce every single day with the most measured role in any organization? How can we carry that over to the other parts? Because, remember, we're talking about this from a revenue architecture standpoint, CRO. It's not just about the new sales. The gamified process, there's so many LMSs that are out there that'll gamify people learning. It'll celebrate if they've hit new milestones. Use technology to support you here. Next thing is team efficiency, not overwork. And I can't say this enough about the burnout or overworking, especially from a sales perspective. Show them that you don't have to have, for example, super long sales cycles. How do we cut down the sales cycle? What do we need to do? Teach them that. Teach them to do more with less. It is so incredibly critical. Teach them how to leverage AI to make things faster and speed things up and how to manage their energy. Managing the energy is a huge one. So for me, when I interview people, I'm always like, what do you like to do in your free time? How do you recharge, et cetera, et cetera. I have never hired anyone that didn't have a recharge method. Because if you haven't figured that out, then wow, this is going to be an uphill battle. So it could be a lot of things. I've hired dancers, people that love CrossFit, hikers, skiers. Some people recharge by reading, marathon runner. It doesn't really matter, right? But whatever their thing is, teach them how to manage their energy beyond just that one thing they do for themselves in the day. So for me, it's that workout in the morning that I talked about. If I don't do that, my whole day is literally a disaster. If you saw me, be like, she missed her workout. Definitely could tell. And my whole family can tell too. I know that, right? I need to move my body. I can't sit still for very long. Like recording this podcast, maybe I should be standing. Who knows? So for me, is I ensure that I have buffers in between meetings or projects. So I can just throw on my sneakers and go take a hot lap around the cul-de-sac with my dog. Or I can take any type of break. We live in a 3-story mountain house. So I'm like going up the stairs or something just to move, right? This is really, really, really mission critical. So if it's someone, that I'm going to give a polar opposite example. If somebody tells you, yeah, like, I read, I like to escape. That's how I recharge. It's like, great. Like, make sure you put your phone on Do Not Disturb during your lunch break and like read a chapter or two and like take a minute for yourself so you can finish your day strong. This is what matters. And this is how we get to lead. And from my soul and my heart, I hope that if you're listening to this, if you're a Gen Zer, you understand how non-intuitive this is going to be for the leaders you're going to work for. So you have a role in educating them as well. Share this podcast. Easy, right? 2, if you are a leader listening to this and you're swearing my name, perhaps throwing darts at my face because I'm like, hey, they're not going to overwork. You got to figure out something different. Well, instead of getting mad at that situation, how can you grow, evolve? Maybe like tower paddleboard. You could become more successful when you cut down on hours. Remember, we're revenue rascals. We don't do things just because you should. All right, rascals, let me ask you this. How much money have you wasted replacing shoes, sneakers, or even bags that could have lasted way longer if only you'd been taken better care of them? I know for me, running from meetings to kids' activities, life gets messy fast. And that's why I always have Jason Mark Quick Wipes on hand. Jason Mark is trusted care to help you get the most out of what you wear. They're not just about cleaning. They're about protecting what you love while protecting the planet. Their wipes are now 100% plant-based and plastic-free, made from renewable lyocell fibers. They're individually wrapped so you can toss them in your bag, your car, or like me, your kids' backpacks. And it's not just convenience. Jason Mark is part of the worldwide B Corp movement, meeting the highest standards for social and environmental impact. They're EPA Safer Choice certified, so you know the formulas are safe for your family. And their products are USDA, bio-based, and certified biodegradable. That means no harmful junk like PFAS or VOCs. Just high-performance care that keeps your stuff looking fresh while doing right by the planet. Personally, as a busy mom and entrepreneur, Quick Wipes are my favorite. They've saved my sneakers from coffee spills, playground dust, you name it. One wipe and I'm ready to walk into my next meeting looking sharp. So here's the deal. Go to jasonmark.com and use promo code Revenue Rascals at checkout for 25% off your order. One time per customer. Again, that's jasonmark.com, code Revenue Rascals. And remember, this podcast is free thanks to sponsors like Jason Mark. I'm ungating sales strategies people pay me 6 figures for. So go support them, grab your Quick Wipes or your favorite product, and keep your kicks looking fresh. You're in the coaching corner where we stop talking and start taking action. Okay, so one of our questions. Whoop, whoop. All right, as a reminder, friends, find me on any of the social platforms. It's all linked in the show notes, or send me an email at hello@michelleterpstra.com. I want your questions. This show will be better, higher caliber, help you more if I have your questions. Once again, it's my mission to unlock what somebody would usually pay me 6 figures for to come on this podcast and help you. I want millions of companies to be able to break through the old guard and have success. And I do it through coaching. Now, I call it coaching because it's quite cheeky, coaching corner. I could call it consulting corner, but whatever. I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So some coaching models are like helping you explore yourself and figure it out. I'm just going to tell you exactly what to do. So maybe I need to rename it, maybe not, but this is the point. So here is one of our first questions. And some of this might be a little repetitive, friends, but I'm going to add new flavor to it as I go through these coaching questions. So just hang tight. You're going to learn something. All right, so how do I keep Gen Z reps, and so this is specifically to sales, motivated without burning them out? So the biggest takeaway that I want everybody to have about Gen Zers, they need short-term wins. Short-term wins. They will not wait durations of time for feedback. You can easily do this, like I said, through your chat channels. Just walk them through the office, pat them on the back, say, hey, I saw you do that. That was amazing. They want the feedback in private and the celebration in public. Takes you 10 seconds as a leader. You just need to be paying attention to doing it. So what I recommend that you do is you find a way to gamify, have challenges. Alicio is a great platform for this. Ryan, if you're listening, how's it going? Right? I'm going to have him on the pod hopefully soon as well. But you can gamify and make it really exciting for people, short-term wins. It's really, really, really easy. Giftogram is like my favorite thing I use, where they get gift cards they can donate to charity or purchase it at like any of the hundreds of stores that are available. Set up weekly challenges, get them gamified, short-term wins, all of the things. And to wrap that up and to repeat it, recognize progress publicly, not just final results. If you're a parent listening, you reward effort before you ever get to reward a result. So don't forget it. It's literally the same thing. So another great thing here is with technology, and if you set success blueprints up right, 30, 60, 90 days, offer flexibility of how and where they work. Whew. I know there's great debates right now over remote working, hybrid working, office work, all of the things. Listen, I think they all work. It just depends on the founder CEO's preference, how you want to work together as teams, and like 5 other variations of that, right? How you sell your product, how you support your product. Do people actually need to be there physically? Like, clearly you're not going to work remotely if you are managing a restaurant. You need to be in the restaurant, right? So I think they all work. But I think what we all have to remember is that flexibility can be available even if you have a 5-day in-office policy. So what does that look like? That looks like, maybe you start an hour later and you leave an hour later than like the regular schedule, or vice versa. Perhaps you have kids events you want to be going to. So then why can't I show up really early, work most of the day, and then make it to my kids' events, right? So things like that, flexibility, autonomy, huge value to the Gen Zers. Okay, question number 2. What's the best way to structure feedback for Gen Z? Short, frequent touch points. And please avoid the sandwich method. Candor, be direct. This is what happens when you sandwich method. If you don't know what it is, I think most people do. It's good thing to work on, good thing. The problem with the sandwich method is that if you always end on good, what do they forget? What was in the middle that you wanted them to work on? Always open up with love and respect, but be direct to them. Say, hey, Johnny, you're not hitting your number of calls. What's going on? How can I support you? That's super easy. But what doesn't work is, hey, Johnny, just listen to a call. It was so good. You did such a good job booking that call. Oh, by the way, I'm noticing that you're not hitting your numbers. So instead of the 50 dials a day, you're only doing 30. Oh, but you know what? I see that you were doing a great job on that handoff to the AE. Way to go. How freaking confusing is that, right? Like, you've done good, room for improvement, good, and now all they're thinking about is good. So this is what I like to do. Give the candor, direct feedback. Let them lead the development a little bit. Don't just give them all the answers, right? So when in my first example, I said, what kind of support do you need to figure this out? Instead of making them answer me on the spot unless they already know, I'm like, hey, just give it some thought today and send me an email before you go home of how we're going to work on this and what you need from me. And I'll give you some feedback and we'll figure it out together. Because it gives them ownership in their development, and you're actually being a straight shooter with them. Like, I think about how many times I received sandwich feedback in my life, and I probably didn't learn a darn thing from it. If someone would have just been direct and helped me get better at something from a loving, caring, supportive standpoint, I would have signed up for that all day long. And to wrap that up with like a bit of a bow, I call that coach mode. So questions, guidance, not directives. You only give a directive when the directive is desired. This is the nuance to coaching Gen Zers to success. One other thing with providing feedback, if there's a lot of negative feedback, and this is a little bit of the struggle bus, Like when they send you that email and they have their ideas, they're probably missing some things. So what I suggest you do is create a roadmap to improve. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3, how much time it's going to take, what means you hit the marker. I realize these things take a lot of time, but you will have a high-performing Gen Zer when most companies can't figure that out. So you're going to be ahead of the curve, and it's 100% in your control to do so. All right, question number 3. How do I create loyalty so they don't leave in 6 months? It's so true. I mean, when I'm on LinkedIn and I scroll profiles and I look at the Gen Zers, I'm like, wow, that was just like a very short stint of time. Now, I take on contract work as a fractional CRO. So in the nature of being a fractional CRO, eventually you're either asked to go full-time and become an employee, or you leave and you hire a replacement. I am the latter person. I like to leave and hire my replacement. And that's just what I've always been doing. It keeps me on my toes. It makes me a better fractional CRO, consultant. I always have the freshest ideas. I find it fun and exciting. And for me, my joy comes in solving the really big, juicy problems and solving them. And when it comes to like day-to-day management, I want somebody else doing that. So bring me in to solve your big problems. Bring me in to execute. Bring me in to set you up for success. Like that's just my personality. So it just depends. And this does, like I said, propose the intersection problem of Gen Zers are loyal to their leaders, not their companies. So when you bring in someone that's like me or any other capacity that's a consultant, it's really critical when the handoff happens that we know where the handoff's going to go to. So that same loyalty can be built up. But this is how you will win go back to earlier in the podcast where I talked about people-centric leadership. People-centric leadership. That is what you should be teaching all of your leaders right now to retain this talent. These Gen Zers that really, really want to work. They just need a different type of support. Invest in their development, like I told you. Career pathing, so skill growth, all those things are really important. If you hire someone in an entry level or not even entry level, like how do they know where they can go from there? You don't have to guarantee it. Nobody can guarantee anything, but like, this is how you get here. This is the career path here. I love that. It's also really important to be transparent about the company direction. They really value honesty. So, depending on when you grew up in business, sometimes there was no transparency beyond the C-level team. Board of directors, C-level, and then you had literally no idea what was going on except for once a year, there's usually some kind of all hands that gives you a little bit of an inkling, right? Well, that's not going to work. So you need to be very transparent on a consistent basis. I mean, I would suggest at least quarterly. And I will say, so just thinking back in my past clients, Kiln, Kiln, the co-working space, Arian, the CEO and founder, is extraordinarily good at this. He is so transparent and he addresses the entire company every quarter, and lots of Gen Zers work there. And I think that is a huge thing. So Arian, if you're listening, which I hope you are, then good for you. You really knocked that one out of the park. So the next thing I want to talk about is building trust and showing that you have their back, not just their quota. If you only see them as a number, they're gone. They're absolutely gone. But they still need to hit their numbers, right, friends? So that clearly needs to be a focus, but do some small things to show you got their back. So for example, let's say you have a team meeting and someone brings up something that perhaps make your new sales rep, let's just go with the SDR, like not look so good, right? Like it's not the best thing ever. So instead of being like, yeah, man, Johnny really screwed that up, because like, let's be honest, sometimes you all been in meetings where that happens. Say like, thank you for the feedback, but this is something I want you to understand on his growth plan or where he'll be making it. And, I'll be working with him to develop those skills. Because when you publicly defend someone because you believe in them and their potential, they're forever loyal to you. Let's bring it home. Rascal Wrap-Up time. Key takeaways and a resource to keep you winning. Gen Z isn't the problem, outdated leadership is. Teach them how to win efficiently, coach consistently, and you'll build loyalty that rivals any generation before. And to help you do this, I've created the Gen Z Sales Leaders Checklist, 10 must-dos to hire, train, and retain this generation, and you can grab it for free on my Substack. And if you're not a sales leader, perhaps you lead marketing, this applies to you too. Just tweak it around, enjoy, and love working with your Gen Zers. Thanks for listening to Revenue Rascals, where we turn bold ideas into predictable revenue and prove that breaking the rules can still build empires. If you love what you heard, do me a favor. Tap the links in the show notes to support our sponsors. They're the ones keeping this show free so I can keep ungating the six-figure strategies that help you scale faster, lead smarter, and take more freedom home with you. And hey, if you think you'd make an incredible guest or know someone who's built something worth studying, email me at hello@michelleterpstra.com. And until next time, stay sharp, stay bold, and stay just a little bit rascal.